Hello, I'm Bridget Todd, and I'm so excited to be joining my Afropunk family for this exciting session today. We're partnering with Maui Moisture to bring you the solution session, all about centering and identifying solutions for radical self-care for Black folks. I'm really excited. We have folks all around the world joining, so please use the chat function to let us know where you're joining from. I'm in Washington, D.C. I'm joined by an incredible group of women that I cannot wait to talk to. Ladies, why don't we start by having you all introduce yourself? Renee, we will start with you joining us from beautiful Barbados.
Yes. Hi, thank you so much for having me. So I'm Renee Daniela. If you're not familiar, I run a social media platform. It's called Owned by Femmes. And really, I just cover everything about women's beauty, hair, lifestyle, and travel. That's probably my biggest passion and perhaps one of the things I'm most known for. So if you're into travel and you're obsessed or you're looking for a little bit of wanderlust in these kind of crazy times, please check out my platform. Enjoy.
Ooh, I will definitely be checking that out. Love travel. Atia, let's go with you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Atia Walcott, and I run a YouTube channel called Atia Walcott. And on that channel, we talk about a whole range of issues from popular entertainment culture to socio-political issues, issues of gender, issues of race. We always keep it humorous, though, even though some of the topics get pretty heavy. So if you want a good place for some intense and juicy discourse, come to my channel, and I'm very happy to be here with you all today.
Intense and juicy. I love it. Next up, let's hear from Mumu Fresh.
Peace. Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited about this talk today. I'm a singer, songwriter, MC from Baltimore. And my music, deals with personal development. So self-care is right up the alley of working on self to be able to show up whole to whatever moment you're being called to. So thank you for having me.
I love it. I love it. Last but not least, we have Dr. Jolly Boy Phillips. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here amongst these illustrious ladies. I am in California, and I'm a mystic. I'm an intuitive healer. I'm a slavery scholar and a sociologist. And you can find me at jollyboyphillips.com. I do readings there. I do healings. I work with individuals. I do maternal care. I also do readings for couples, for families, and I also do land healings and home clearings. And my specialty is really in understanding trauma, both ancestral trauma and experiential trauma, and healing it.
Very, very critical for these times. That's actually a great segue into the first question I want to ask everybody, which is just, how are we feeling? We're in a very strange time with this current climate. We're talking about self-care today. How are we all feeling? I just want to check in with everybody. Atia, let's start with you.
I'm feeling better right now, honestly. Just waking up and getting to spend time with other Black women, quite frankly, this morning. That is a community. I just got out of grad school, actually, right at the top of the pandemic, and I went to USC, and just being at a predominantly white institution was it was an interesting experience. And in that world, we had 7 out of 9 of us in my personal ensemble were Black. And anyway, I'm feeling good because I have community to look to in these times.
Community is so important. Mumu Fresh, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling good right now. It's been a constant up and down. I think throughout this pandemic, I've learned to take one day at a time and kind of manage my expectations, because here we are in September. I know it's October, and still dealing with this situation, especially for artists, like not having the opportunity to perform and create with each other. And that's normally our healing mechanism. That is, I like to look at it as our filtration system, our emotional compass, so that's been interesting, but I think getting a good hold on how to manage, um, these new times that we're living in. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to be healthy. And yeah, that's all I can ask for, is to be grateful and present.
Jolly, how are you feeling?
I'm doing really well. I'm doing really well. This pandemic has been um, really, really beautiful for me. I've been able to learn a lot about myself, a lot about the world, a lot about how to help others, which has been amazing. I've lost people I love. I have people I love who've lost people they love. Um, I had COVID early on and got through it. So I mean, it's been just an enormous experience. And I'm really interested in all of the ways that this society that has never really worked for us is sort of deconstructing itself in all of the ways that we're constructing a new society that will work for everyone.
Wow. That's such a transformation going from helping others, having COVID yourself. That's a lot. Last but not least, Renee, how are you feeling?
I mean, I can say that being the fact that I am tuning in from Barbados at the minute, I don't live here. If anyone was going to get jealous, I do not live in Barbados. I wish I did. I currently am lived in, and I to so much of what you guys have said. I mean, I definitely feel like you take it a day at a time, and there are these days where you just feel kind of like, okay, yeah, I'm okay. I can do this. Like, certain things have gone well today, so I'm just going to celebrate that. And then pendulum swing, and you're like, where you start and all the things that you don't have control over at minutes, all the ways that we're just heavily affected emotionally, physically, mentally, and stuff. So I will say today in this moment, I am really, really grateful. And I definitely have found that over the past few months, I've gained a lot of appreciation for the stillness that has kind of been forced on us. I got the chance to spend time with my family in a way that I don't often get to, especially being someone who's often on the road and traveling. So, yeah, I've learned a lot of lessons from the stillness, and I'm just to kind of hold tight to that gratitude and hope that we start to see this change and growth that we need and deserve as a community, on an individual level, on the global level, everything. I'm just holding on to the positive idea that that is what's coming. That's what we're moving towards.
Yes, manifest it. I love it. So, my first question for the group is Audre Lorde talks about self care being a radical act of resilience for Black folks. Do you all agree that self care can be a radical act for us in a world that seems kind of hell bent on our destruction? Let's start with Mumu Fresh.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think this time period has really allowed me to utilize some of the tools that I was already familiar with, but maybe didn't keep in my routine as much as I should have. My mother is a person who believes in radical self care. She had her days where you could not speak to her all day long. She was going to stay in the bathtub, she was going to get massages. She learned to do aromatherapy because my brother who has Down syndrome wasn't able to walk early on, and she massaged his legs with aromatherapy until he was able to walk. So, she would have all the aromatherapy pots going. She'd have the whale moans and flute playing. And so there were certain days where we had to respect that this was her self-care day, and whatever we needed, we were going to have to wait until it was over. So I think she really was that pioneer in self-care and how important that was. My mother was involved in a lot of social justice movements and organizations, and that comes with a whole lot of stress. And so those days were necessary. You can't really function at a high level dealing with what we have to deal with without taking care of self, because as you would see a lot of the elders that I grew up with who were fierce freedom fighters, warriors, scholars. You would start to see them becoming ill, with terminal illnesses, one after another, and they were all vegan and vegetarian. They worked out. So what was the common denominator besides the stress of knowing, like when you've been woke a long time and and you don't have the bliss of ignorance, you have to find a way to relieve that stress. And so my mom was that person for me. So I kind of had a blueprint, but during the pandemic, I had to put those tools into actions. I had to start my own self-care days that I wasn't going to allow to be disrupted no matter what happened. I got certified in Reiki during this time period, mainly to work on myself and to work on my son. And yeah, like even breathing exercises. I had learned them from my mother as a child, but I didn't do them every day. And now I'm making a point every morning to make sure I'm being intentional about oxygenating my body, and it's made a tremendous difference.
It's so nice to hear you describe this self-care routine that you kind of got from your mother.
Yeah.
Jolly, I have a question for you as someone who is a healer. What does your self-care routine looks like? I loved hearing, Mumu, your mom's routine of taking a bath and you kids don't mess with me today. What does your routine look like?
My routine really involves a lot of sleep, and it also involves direct sunlight. It involves a whole lot of laughter and joy, however I can get it. And it involves interactions with people that I love who bring me joy. It involves fresh foods, like really fresh, really delicious foods. I treat myself with herbs. So I sort of ask my organs, like, okay, who's dealing with the stress? Like, where is it sitting today? And who needs what in the tea? Like, what herbs are we putting in there? And then, of course, prayer, meditation, just sort of checking in with all five of my bodies, not just my physical, but making sure I'm not holding things that don't serve me, releasing anything that doesn't have anything to do with me, anything that's irrelevant, just being like, nope, I'm not carrying that.
So important. Atia, I want to sort of ask a follow-up question on that. A lot of your work as a video creator is really about intersectionality and lifting up these intersections. I know in conversations around self-care, sometimes those conversations can leave out the fact that sometimes we talk about self-care as like getting a manicure or, a face mask or things that cost money. My question for you is, are there ways that we can be mindful of our self-care that are low cost or free? Is there a way to do it so that it's not so attached to buying things and spending money and commerce?
Oh, yes. I'm really working on self-care right now. And the main thing that I recently have come to terms with is finding gratitude and joy in daily small actions. So my coffee that I make every morning, I'm telling you, like that is the same high that I would get from being like going to a concert right now, if that were still a thing. But I truly, Jale, what you were saying about daily joy and love, I throw love and joy into everything. If I am cleaning, you can make that as delicious as like your favorite food or anyway, what I'm getting at is you can do a lot of self-care free 99. The thing that I've recently developed is a morning routine. Like I take a vitamin C every morning. I don't know why. It feels amazing. Yes, it costs money, but you can eat an orange too. There are economical ways to get your vitamins. But anyway, there's a lot of ways where you can practically develop self-care habits that are free or already a part of your routine. Putting in earrings every morning. Okay, that also costs money. Okay, I'm not doing well. But there are things you have lying around that you already use that you can give it the power to bring you joy.
I think that's so important, right? It can be just using what we have around us already and drawing strength from that. To that end, Renee, a lot of your work is about building online communities and bringing communities together. How have you found that community has been part of your self-care practice?
Oh my gosh, it has been so huge, especially so I lived in LA until February of this year. Literally, my lease was ending. I didn't want to leave LA, but I wanted to move out of the building I was in. Longer story short, I had some travels coming up, so I thought most economical choice is put all my stuff in storage, travel for a few months, and then move into the new place I wanted in Los Angeles. Obviously, pandemic started in March. I moved out at the end of February, so just in time. My first stop on my travels was to visit my parents, and it ended up being my first and last stop. But I was quite removed from a lot of my friends. My friends group that I built in LA, and obviously, even if you live down the road from someone, most of us aren't able to see everybody as freely as we wanted. But I just found that using all the tools and resources available online, and just the FaceTimes, the video chats, just that simple checking in with someone, and also that became an act of care to receive. It was almost like a gift to have somebody to come in and check on you and message you and say, hey, I was thinking about you today, and I read this really cool article about meditation. I want to share it with you. Or, it's people wanting to get back to each other and things like that. So I found, as much as this time has been quite isolating, and I think perhaps one of the hardest parts of this time is the feeling of isolation, the feeling of loneliness maybe that people have had. I also found that it's made some friendships and some relationships just feel so much more stronger, and just help you really prioritize them. Like I said, spending more time with my family, you just realize how important it is to cultivate those relationships with your family. Then, especially, I'm really grateful to have my mum and dad both still with me. Getting to know them older versus when I was no longer just like, hey guys, I'm hungry, I'm popping it, you know what I mean? Like, no, it's full-on conversations. Well, what do you guys see for yourselves now that you're in your late 50s and 60s? And what do you aspire and what do you want for yourself? So on so many levels, this time, the opportunity to build stronger bonds with my friends, my family, has been a huge part of keeping me sane, keeping me grounded, and just keeping me whole and like functional. So I attribute so much of the joy that I have today to the community that I have online, offline, just everybody. I'm so grateful.
Yeah, gratitude has been. I've learned a lot about gratitude since the pandemic began, definitely. So my next question is for Mumu. As a musician, an artist, someone who is very busy, how do you make time for your self-care? Let's say that you know your body or your spirit needs something, but then a million other people also need something from you, work obligations. How do you make sure that you assert that self-care is something that you need, and that you, even when it feels like things are wild and there's a lot going on?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't always been great at it. I think I'm becoming better. I'm being kind to myself when I'm not that great at it. Um, Definitely, this pandemic has given me a lot of time for self care. Um, but because my music in particular is so much about pouring out, I pour out a lot into the audience. There is an exchange even after the shows. I spend a lot of time with audience members, talking to them about their lives, about where they are in their journey. I have to be full before my concerts, or I won't have anything meaningful to give. I'll be drained, because it's difficult night after night. It's almost kind of like a therapist, if you will. Like my therapist has a therapist, and it is that same sort of energy. I know I have to be full to show up, to be my best self, to offer what they come to the show for. It is a beautiful energy exchange. It's a spiritual experience. So I'm making sure, like, I have to, because I feel the difference if I don't. If I miss a day, I know the difference. So I'm making sure I have to do, like, the sunning that you mentioned. Oh my God, my mom is like a huge proponent. She's a huge supporter of sunning, sunbathing. Like, every day she's like, make sure you go outside and you get that first morning sun before noon. Make sure you put your feet in the earth, you're grounding before your shows, because that is what kind of anchors me throughout the show. Making sure I have my ancestor altar, making sure I'm feeding my ancestors, and just really staying in contact with my spirit guides, those who are helping to support me and ground me. And sleep is a big thing. I smiled when you said sleep, because I'm like, ooh, I love sleep so much. Like good quality sleep. I put on put on my affirmations, or maybe, some healing tones, different frequencies, and just get a really good REM sleep. I have to keep it in mind, because I can't be my full best self. If I don't, I'll be a shell of a woman.
When you said sleep, I saw a lot of big smiles. I have a feeling that sleep, like meaningful rest and sleep, is a big part of all of our self-care routines. Very important. Atia, I want to ask you something, especially as someone who has just come out of grad school. Have there ever been times where you felt uncomfortable about expressing your need for self-care, particularly in an educational setting?
Especially in the educational setting. That did not exist there. I'm unlearning some of the habits that I did learn at school. And some of them are great. Grounding myself, getting on my voice every day, every morning. But then I'm also unlearning this concept of you need to push yourself through everything. Like the most important thing is for you to get this work done. And then it hit me. I was like, I am not curing cancer. I am not a doctor. Like, I'm trying to help lives, but I'm not literally saving them. So what is the cost of what I'm trying to do? And very quickly I realized that self-care was high up on that list. And working hard doesn't look the way I thought it did. You could actually take that nap and be more productive for that 1 hour versus having a bunch of coffee and pushing yourself to do nothing over the course of 5 or 6 hours. So having the faith and the trust in my goals to get what I need to do to get that done has enabled me to begin to prioritize self-care, because I do think that's hard. And especially as a Black woman, I do want to work 10, 3, 4 times as hard. But you can't. You gotta put your self-care first.
Yeah.
Jolly, I see you nodding a lot. You are also an academic. Is this something you can relate to?
Absolutely. I have recently started thinking about academia and specifically grad school, like these higher degrees, as a hazing. It has less to do with the information that you have the capacity to sort of collate and process and present in a certain way, and more to do with whether or not you can fit into this paradigm that does not value you. It doesn't value women. It doesn't value people of color. It doesn't value all of the different ways that knowledge is gained. It really only values like one type of like epistemology and one type of knowledge, like communication. And it doesn't value the entire story. So, I mean, when my PhD came in the mail, I went to school in England and, came back to the States as soon as I could, because it was just such a terrible experience. And when my PhD came in the mail, like I did not go to my graduation. I was like, send it to me. I don't need to see y'all again. I really just wanted to toss it into the trash. Like I was just like, I'm not. And you see, like the work that I do is not in academia. Like I left it all behind. And I did my master's at USC too. So I feel you. Like I know that life.
Well, it's just like what you were saying, like giving up what doesn't serve you. And we have this idea that, oh, if you've made it to academia, to grad school, this is the ideal for success. But if that's not serving you, having the power and the strength to like let it go, I think that's really important. And to that end, Renee, I have a question for you. We've talked a little bit about this today, that especially for Black women, we can feel like we need to have it all. We need to, be super women who can do all of this stuff and never need to take a nap, never need to rest. How can we help folks understand that it's okay to not be okay sometimes? It's okay to have a day where you're like, I'm going to be in the bathtub today and no one can bother me or ask me for anything. How can we normalize that this is all okay?
Yeah, I always, even when I talk to my friends, and a lot of what I might say in conversation to my friends is also what I'm saying to myself. But oftentimes, I think we need to remember what dreams we're chasing. Like sometimes I think we can get on these hamster wheels and we want to perform at a certain, level for a certain vision, but the vision isn't ours. And we wonder, like, why is it so hard for me to maintain? Why is it so hard for me to get to where I want to go? But we don't realize that's not the destination that was for us. It's not where we want to go internally. It's not spiritually aligned with who we are and what we want. And so I think oftentimes just being able to be grounded and say, okay, well, let me remember, like, maybe I don't look this certain way. Maybe I don't perform this certain way. I don't act this certain way. Maybe I'm not talented in these specific categories. But are those things that I am actually passionate about? Are those things that actually speak to me? Are those goals that are actually for me? And if they're not, then it's so good for you to just take that moment and go back to what are your priorities? What actually makes you feel? What inspires you? What gives you desire? Because oftentimes I think so many of us would have so much more ambition towards the things that we do if what we are doing were really aligned with us. And so oftentimes if you find that you're not meeting certain deadlines or certain requirements for something, that, okay, well, reevaluate, make sure you're on the right track for what you want. And also just stop we all have to stop valuing ourselves based on those achievements in the first place. Sometimes just reminding yourself that purely existing is enough in and of itself. Being able to share love, to be able to share laughter, to be able to share stories and communicate with your community, to be able to build a community, those are enough before you go out and you accomplish X amount of earning X amount of money or degrees or any of those things. Like when we can just be and take joy in just existing, that I think helps us change our value system in a way that will align with us. And I love that we've had this theme of let go. Because I remember I was going through a breakup, and we all know breakups are just irrational in the first place, like our feelings and how they intertwine. But I remember my friend had told me she had told me a quote, and she wrote it in a card. Literally, I'd been in pieces. She wrote me a card and she gave it to me, and in it, and I've never let it go. And it was let go of thoughts that do not make you strong. And I reapply that I look at life like a cycle. So even on the best days, I respect that, oh yeah, there's going to be times again in future, same as the last, where I might feel like I'm not achieving, or I might feel down or whatever. But when I simply just kind of have that reminder of like, I've got to let go of the people, of the places, of the things, of the goals and desires and influences in my life that are holding me back, that are holding me down. And just that process alone, it's incredible just how much power is right here in our own minds for us to be able to feel freer, more positive, more uplifted before we've changed or, moved and done anything else externally in our lives. Just that mental capacity, and believing in our strength mentally, like really believing in what your mind can do for you, and what your frame of thought and how influential that is for you. And some of you guys mentioned, I think, eating better is a big self-care part for you, and that I believe in wholeheartedly, because I know the difference in, like, if I'm eating poor foods and crap foods and unhealthy foods, fried foods, versus when I'm eating, a lot of raw foods, a lot of from the earth foods, natural, processed, I can feel so much better. And that automatically shifts, the way I view things and all of the above. But anyway, that for me has been really helpful.
I think that's so important. Like, just that reminder that it's a practice that we have to do all the time, and that, it may look different every day. It's a holistic approach. And that really speaks to something, Mumu, that you were speaking about earlier, that you haven't always, been the best at prioritizing your self-care. You have to, like, remind yourself, how do we get ourselves and other folks to understand that self-care is not always linear, that it can be a practice that we rely on and, remember every day? How can we remember that ideal in ourselves and help others understand that as well?
I really try to brainwash myself. Like, that's why I listen to certain things at night that remind me of how I want to feel during the day and help me make better choices throughout the day. So I'm really big on programming myself. Me and my mom, we send each other, YouTube videos that kind of help keep us on the right path, because it is easy to put yourself last. And I also relate to that kind of rat race mentality in academia, because it's absolutely the same way in music. It's like sleep when you die. Everything's about who can perform the highest. And I am a high achiever, but also I have to listen to my body, because my body responds almost immediately if I'm off course. Either I'll break out, or there'll be swelling, or nausea or acid reflux. Like, my body responds immediately when I am not taking good care of myself. And so I look at those things as kind of like, all right, that's my kind of guide to if I'm on course, if my body is in balance, if my spirit is in balance. And as a Pisces, I'm like super sensitive and emotional anyway. So I know if I'm a little bit more sensitive or emotional than normal, it's like, okay, I gotta come back into center. Because as a business owner, as like a leader of a band, and I'm a female band leader of all men, it's just I have to be centered in order to do my job in the best capacity. And yeah, so I just have to be intentional. I write it all over my house. I have little note cards. Be intentional. You know what I mean? Like, make time for yourself. Be kind to yourself. Like, I have to post it everywhere. I just decided, like, in our environment constantly tells us to put our attention on things that don't fill us, that don't ground us, that so I just have to do the opposite. The same way I'm constantly being brainwashed to believe that I'm not enough, so then I have to do the opposite. I have to, all day long make that the practice until it's second nature, until I've reprogrammed all of my subconscious beliefs to be in alignment with my health and my healing.
Great. I'm going to end with one final rapid fire question for everybody. What are you working on in terms of self-care? What are you working on getting better at in the coming weeks? So, Renee, we'll start with you.
Oh my gosh. I think like specifically in the coming weeks, like I said, the stillness that I've learned from being in quarantine and isolation, that has influenced me to value that so much more. And so even like you were saying before, this idea of, can you be productive? Sorry, I'm like shooing away mosquitoes. Can you be productive with 1 hour if you've got no sleep, but you're taking coffee and trying to get all this stuff done, versus let me have this stillness. Let me focus on what I need most, so that when I actually do get work done, I'm doing it to the best of my capacity. So for me, even though it might sound a little crazy, I'm really trying to focus on learning how to leverage stillness in a way that is more intentional moving forward. Because I know we've kind of been forced into it, but I've seen the power that it holds. So I want to be intentional moving forward.
Love it. Jolly.
I really need to practice what I preach. I mean, I teach all of my clients that they need to forgive themselves, that they need to rest, that they need to plan and prioritize joy and love and happiness into their day. Like, 8 a.m. wake up, 9 a.m. dance around to your favorite 90s R&B song, like that. And I just need to do a better job of doing those same things every single day and not skipping.
Atia.
Well, one, I want to respond to that and say that's beautiful. I'm reading Waking Up by Sam Harris, A Guide to Spirituality Without Religion. And there's a quote in there that says, wisdom is simply like the ability to take your own advice. And I thought that was so powerful. And I was like, wow. Wow. Anyway, for me, what I'm working on prioritizing in the upcoming week is consistency, and I forgot the second one, but I'll go with consistency. I find it hard to think about practicing certain things daily just because of my idea of the rest of my life, doing something every day, that concept just for some reason scares me, even if it's as simple as praying for 5 minutes every morning. So I'm just working on getting consistent, because even though it appears hard, it can be extra rewarding. So yeah.
Definitely. Umu Fresh, what are you looking forward to getting better at in the next coming weeks as it pertains to your self-care?
Definitely routine. Yeah, definitely I agree with routine and consistency. That is a big one. Not letting some new opportunity get in the way of, your, like you said, prayer schedule or whatever you set up for yourself. Like letting nothing else be more important than that. Like that's really something I want to be way more consistent with, like keeping it in a time frame and not eating so late. that's something I'm trying to not eat so late.
I love
I
it.
just
Well,
thought, like, can I say it?
oh yeah, please.
The other thing is controlling your thoughts, or not controlling them, but you have the power over your thoughts, and thoughts are energy and their power. So you think something that's truly shifting molecules on this earth. So just staying in control of that. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I'm glad that you added that. Does anyone else have final thoughts before we wrap?
I do want to share that the pancreas is in charge of receiving love. That's its whole job, is receiving love. And anything that enters your space, anything that comes in that doesn't love you, the pancreas is like, nope, that needs to go. So, sis Mumu, when you were talking about having acid reflux, that's your pancreas being like, hey, this don't love you. Like, get rid of that. And when you think
Okay, I'm
about
taking that
like
in.
the hyper occurrence of diabetes, among Black women, it just helps you understand why that exists so much, because we're all day long living in this society, swallowing things that just don't love us. So, number one, filtering out like things that are not for you, turning away from it, closing your eyes, not taking in trauma as entertainment, not taking in trauma as like a daily teaspoon of whatever, and really just caring for that pancreas and being like, does this love me? Yes, no. If no, deuces.
I
And what
love
else
that.
loves me?
I'm taking that all the way in. Yeah. Oh, we can I add one more? Less
Please.
social media. I have to do less of the social media. I am really trying to get off of the drug called social media.
I deleted Instagram today.
Yes, get rid of what doesn't serve you, right? If it's not serving you, uh, get rid of it. Listen to your body, listen to your pancreas, and listen to these ladies. I thank all of you so much for being here on this panel. You were all amazing and gave us such good insight. I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time. And I also want to thank Maui Moisture again. And thanks to everyone for hanging out and being here. There's going to be so much going on Planet Afropunk, and I'm sure we'll see you all again this weekend. Please take care of yourself, listen to your body, listen to your pancreas, and keep hanging out here.